Hey, welcome to an impromptu episode of the Tech Entrepreneurs Podcast, the 2 minute Tech Entrepreneurs Podcast, which is probably never 2 minutes, but somewhere in there ish. Anyway, just wanted to reach out real quick and put in a little episode geared towards entrepreneurs on this new information out regarding the man in the prompt attack in security speak attack vector. Anyway, which we won't do too much of that because I want to break it down. Break it down, make it real simple. So, three things I want to hit. Well, first, I'm going to break it down a little bit, and then three things I want to take to do along with it. One, I want to talk about why. Like why this is coming out now, which is kind of an important question. Like what is it about this that is coming out now? Two, I want to break down a little bit of like how important this is for your business. So we're going to through the different scenarios in which this will be applicable to your business, and then three, talk about solutions. So how to fix it. Obviously, this is sort of new, so probably not a lot of places that are given like super duper concrete um, advisement for like how to fix it, how to protect against it. But there are some practical things you can do. So first of all, just real simple. So this attack or vulnerability is the result of, which kind of goes into the like why is this coming out. It's the result of the ability to install extensions on your in your internet browser, in your internet browser. Like most of the browsers we use today are like a lot of people use Chrome. Some people use Edge. Um, some people still use Firefox, but by and large, the browsers that we use are Chromium based. So there's the ability to set up extensions. Firefox has their own set of extensions, their own extension store. Um, so effectively, here's what the issue is. When you use your LLM, whether it's in house or um, in-house or ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, when you use those with um, in the same browser as you have like installed and active running extensions set up, then your information is vulnerable for to that extension and to everyone who has access to that extension. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Um, it's vulnerable to everyone who has access to that extension to take to extract data that you put into um, data you put into um, your LLM and pull it out. So, for example, so like if you were running, and this is not, I mean, I'm talking to you from the perspective of like business owners. For me, like I've been an entrepreneur for about, I don't know, um, not 15, um, 11, 11 years, almost 12 years now. Um, Software developer, software engineer, software architect for probably about 10 to 15. And so, um, effectively, when you, um, I guess, say you have like an extension that's like a third party password manager, um, we'll use that as an example. Or maybe like a contacts extractor. There are a bunch of different widgets or whatever that you can use, otherwise known as extensions for browsers that you can use. So if you have one of those, you go into your regular sites, you go into your email site. If you're using like Gmail or something, you go into I don't know, whatever your news site is. Um, so effectively, every web page that you go to, um, extensions that you have loaded have the ability to do something in that page. For example, like a password manager. Password manager has the ability to set or detect what page you're on, and then based on what page you're on, put in the right password for that page. So that's that. The thing is, and this is part of why I'm asking why this is coming out now. Technically, like that's never been. I mean, the security of extensions, the amount of security that extensions get, especially depending on what kind of passwords, or not passwords, but permissions each one is granted, has been only really restricted by like, or depending on like how much you trust the publisher of that extension, which I know I'm getting a little bit out there for some, but effectively, it's like anytime you go and say extensions and you're searching through those, like independent developers have made those. So there's no guarantee on like the security of any one of those. Now, we'll say as far as the Chrome extension store, Google does go through and mark different extensions that have been like just out of date, not really maintained, extensions that they found potentially compromising code in. So they'll mark that, but that's no guarantee. Like there's no guarantee that like all your data is safe. Because in other words, of all the extensions that you can install on your computer, like you don't know which one's behind the scenes doing what, like really. So, so part of that is the trust part, and that's frankly the big part. So where this ties into, as far as LLMs are concerned, most of the LLMs we run are in the web browser. So when you're running ChatGPT, when you're running Gemini, when you're running other LLMs, including ones that are local, if they're browser based, anything you run in that browser is subject to being manipulated by whatever extensions that you have installed in that browser. So, as far as again, why right now it is a little. I mean, I get that this is an issue. Like it doesn't negate the fact that this is a potential vulnerability, but like it's always been there. It didn't just show up a couple weeks ago. So here's the deal. As far as whether or not this affects your business, your company. So there are a couple things. Like I said, one, if your users, if the people that are using the computers at your company, if they've somehow installed different extensions on their in their browsers, and at least as far as this thing is concerned, and they're using an LLM, again, whether that's like an in-house LLM, like one you set up, which for most companies at this point, that's not the case. Or they're using ChatGPT and they're putting your company information in ChatGPT, even if you've set ChatGPT not to learn, or even if you've gotten the special provision to keep it from storing stuff, like for like HIPAA or whatever other security concerns or compliance reasons, even if you've got that special allotment from them, if someone's already has the extension set up in that browser, that is one of your employees has extension set up in the browser, anything that goes into ChatGPT, somebody can come behind that has access to or that made the extension or has come behind and manipulated the extension, they can come behind and send prompts to ChatGPT, to whatever LLM you're using, and then extract data, get the LLM to give it information that you put in. So, as far as to try to assess whether or not your company is at risk, it depends on, like I said, number one, do you have extension set up? And just as a kind of matter of like betting, I would bet that if you have more than 10 employees, I'd bet that you at least one of them has installed some type of extension, unless um, unless you have a company-wide policy for your browser, the browser that you have set up on your employees' computers, a company-wide policy that governs what can be installed and what can't. And the vast majority of businesses do not. So um, I would say, like I said, I mean, if you're if you're trying to kind of get an idea, if you're over 10 employees, more than likely they've installed extensions. Number two constraint, because both of these have to be the case, they have to have extensions installed, and number two, you have to be using an LLM. That is, your employees have to be using an LLM in the same browser. Um, and technically, as far as the risk is concerned, putting information into the LLM that could be compromising either your clients, business, trade secrets, that kind of thing. So, if that's not the case, or if that is the case, then your business is potentially at risk. Well, if it is the case, then your business could, yeah, potentially at risk, because the other factor is the level to which you trust the extension providers, which again is not, for the most part, like we don't, you don't know who made what extensions. And the other curveball to this is, even if you know the um, if you even if you know the publisher, you don't have a guarantee that um, it wasn't compromised on the computer. Now, that's kind of a that's kind of a different story in itself, because frankly, if it was compromised on the computer, or somehow somebody installed a rogue extension, then there's probably the possibility for other security vulnerabilities within your setup anyway. So that's that's a little bit outside the scope of this thing, but at the same time, it's definitely a risk. In fact, that would be a greater risk. So I would definitely recommend getting that looked at as soon as possible if you suspect that that might be the case in your case. Um, so that's risks. Those that is like kind of just a bird's eye view of like who might be affected. Um, and again, like none of this is like to completely freak you out. And at the same time, if the risk is there, is best to take care of it sooner than later. So, with that said, let's talk about fixes. So a couple simple fixes. Like number one, I am biased against extensions, using extensions in browsers, um, because it doesn't, frankly, to me, it doesn't matter what site that you're going to. If you got browser extensions installed, that gives that extension an enormous amount of power over just about everything you put in the browser. Um, um, Sites you go to, access to manipulate sites that you go to. Um, and to me, that's like, for not knowing any of the publishers. In other words, I mean, some of them, yeah, for not knowing any of the publishers, at the end of the day, I don't. Um, some of it, obviously, some of it comes from companies we know, but in other words, again, if the extension somehow gets manipulated, then like that's I don't know who published it or who modified it. So it's just too big of a risk for me since, like, these days, almost across multiple organizations, it's getting close to like 80% plus of the work that we do is in the web browser. And so to have that big of your like content movement um, at risk is just too much of a it's too much of a risk for me. So now I can say that from the perspective of like that I don't use browser extensions, from the perspective that I've done a bunch of software development. So like if I need some custom tool to make life easier, then I'll just build it. Um, there's some things that I'll use, obviously, like kind of just um, off the shelf type stuff, but not like in the browser extension. Um, so that's that. So that's frankly that would be the easiest fix, is just simply disable browser extensions across the board. Now, for some organizations, it's just not possible. Um, so, um, like some users would probably take a significant um, performance hit in terms of efficiency. Like I mean, the only real reason to use a browser extension is for um, security. Well, not security. I say security, thinking kind of like password managers. That's one way. But for the most part, the biggest reason is for efficiency. Like it just helps you do your job a little bit faster, easier, quicker, or whatever. So some organizations, some users won't really be able to live with that. Um, and so the other option, which is not too bad either, is you can set up um, you can set up uh, separate profiles. Like if you're using any kind of Chromium browser, um, Chrome itself, um, even Firefox, which is not Chromium based, but Firefox, um, Edge, which is Chromium based. Um, any of those browsers have this concept of profiles. So um, you can set up a separate profile to separate like what you're working on. Um, so in other words, you can set up a specific profile. Say you have a couple of browser extensions that you need for a certain reason. You can separate those into a separate profile. Those tabs that you use for those extensions, you can separate those in a separate profile. You can enable those extensions on that specific profile, but not on um, the other profiles that you use. So that's one um, possibility. The other side of that also is you could do vice versa. And because this is about like protecting information you put in the LLM, this current vulnerability, um, you can set up a separate profile for how you access your LLMs. Now, if your business has like a internal LLM that is browser based, I would highly recommend this anyway. Um, that would probably be a good idea. Like if you're storing like really critical business stuff, trade secrets, that kind of thing, that would kind of be nice, especially these days and age. Um, yeah, it would be a good idea. Um, and there are multiple ways to do that. In fact, you can set it up to where um, the browser or the application, your LLM application, works like a desktop application while it's technically browser based, but it automatically comes up as as a separate profile, kind of behind the scenes. But like you just click, just like you would uh, in a local application, and then it just comes up. So that's a way to do that to where there's not like you don't not having to figure something out as an end user. Um, So that's that. Those two things I would probably those are the easiest two fixes. However, long term, because this isn't going to be, and I'll probably jump on and do another episode on this later, but this isn't going to be the end of like security issues with AI. Um, there's AI is a really 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 good tool to have. I don't really want to say good, um, but it can be a very valuable tool. Um, at the same time, tools are only valuable to the extent that they're used correctly. Um, AI is not a replacement for your local database for multiple reasons. It's not designed um, to like set permissions for multiple users, to give different users or different user groups different permissions. It's not designed to do that. As much as even no matter what somebody tells you about how much they trained it, it's not designed to do that. Even to this day, um, the first of the first LLMs, the biggest LLMs still hallucinate. So, and it's like sometimes it's like 9 out of 10. So you don't you don't want those kind of odds when it comes to things that you necessarily want to protect. So especially if you're any company that's looking to implement an in-house LLM, um, effectively, um, the AI portion of that should be kind of containerized, not just as a whole, but like the different portions of it. So like the models that you want for a specific group, for a specific department, those should be containerized in a separate application that's meant to direct, to cordon off, and to provide the permission enforcement that an LLM is not was not designed to do. So in other words, that goes back to like how is this architected? So I think it's a really good idea. This is definitely not to shoot down private AI. I think it's a very good idea to do private AI. And at the same time, in doing it, and frankly, if you're going to do that and or integration of public AI into your internal systems, still you need to have a wrapper around that. So yeah, put some messages in the comments. Let me know if that's something that you're dealing with. If you have any questions on how you can improve, fix the security vulnerabilities in your business. If you have any more questions about which ones apply to you, give me some straight, honest feedback. Just have some fun with it. But yeah, anything that kind of would be beneficial for your business or others, definitely put that in the comments. And like I said, I'll probably try to put some more information on like what long-term solutions for AI, especially private AI, more integrated AI into your current systems, what that looks like. Because like obviously we know like it's AI is coming, it's moving, it's gonna keep moving. And so there are ways to leverage it, and there are ways that are not so great to leverage it. So like at the end of the day, we want to leverage it in ways that are going to be stable, and not effectively be a liability that can have 30% plus more of crushing your business later on. So that's all I have for now. Yeah. And like I said, if you just want to do like the quick and dirty solution, like cut extensions, and yeah, that'll keep you in the clear of this for now. Like I, yeah. But anyway, that's it for this one. This was fun, and hope to see you on the next one.